Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
My coping mechanisms aren't working. What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood. Moms are crazy because kids make them that way. With Margaret Abels
and Amy Wilson.
One shouldn't really be in a corn maze without some children with you.
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to. I felt like a freak. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of What Fresh Hell? Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy, and today we're talking about what becoming a mom has changed about us.
Yes. This is a topic that we've been kind of dancing around a little bit, and then Jordan came to our Facebook group and wrote this post. Episode idea: how being a mother changes your personality, values, general anxiety level, etc. All the things, 3 exclamation points.
It does.
It does. It changes all the things.
It's science.
Mm-hmm. Amy's got some science. We have some anecdotes. But I think if I were to point to all of the things, you know, people say, my Aunt Terry always says, what surprised you about motherhood? What didn't you know? This is the thing I didn't really expect, is like, I think I've talked about before on the podcast, bringing home my first baby, and my husband fell asleep and I was sitting up and he was having different health problems. The first night we had to bring him back to the hospital, and just being like this feeling of these metal doors to my old life just clanging shut and being in this like wasteland of like the other side and feeling so overwhelmed and terrified and frankly regretful. That what have I done? What have I done? I used to be happy and now I have a baby. And part of that was some postpartum hormonal stuff, but there is something pretty deep about how incredibly your life changes after having a child.
I felt like I changed more than my life. I mean, clearly my life was different, right? And I felt myself sailing away far, far away from my friends who didn't have kids yet. Like they would come see the new baby once and then it was like, okay, we're going to go back to our old lives. And, you know, I can't, everything's changed.
We have stuff to do.
Right. But what I sort of felt more keenly was sort of the difference in me. And then when I thought about it more, I'm like, have I changed, or is it just that my coping mechanisms aren't working in this new way? The things that brought me to this point will take me no farther now that I've become a parent. I think both are true.
Like, give me an example of that.
Well, I wrote a book on this. It's called When Did I Get Like This? It's literally what the book is about. So you know, it's a parenting book and it's a series of essays about like, I am not going to overthink breastfeeding. I am not going to overthink where my kid's going to go to preschool. Like each chapter is like, this one, I'm not going to go to cuckoo town on this one. And then I totally do each time over and over in the book. And, you know, I sort of argue that it's my assignment, but I also argue that like that worked for me. Like that was the kind of kid I was. I was, you know, a total Girl Scout do be, you can do it, just work hard enough and you will succeed. And, parenting's not like that. And so I think I was trying to apply my old sort of Tracy Flick type A traits to something that doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think it's exactly right. I think for me, I was 37 years old when I had my first child, and I had a very fun life. And I think that I had a life with a lot of freedom and a lot of independence and kind of just doing whatever I wanted. And I felt this overwhelming sense with a new baby that, like, I remember he was born in late September and we were sitting and watching the World Series a couple of days later. And I remember just looking at the crowd at the World Series and thinking, like, how are these people at a baseball game? I guess they never had a child. Like, I had this feeling of like, I'm never going to do anything again. I would look out the window and people were like smiling and walking down the street. And I would just feel like, why am I in baby prison? I felt I could not conceive of myself with a baby in the world. It seemed absurd to me.
Should we talk about some of the ways that your brain actually changes one's brain? Because I think this is fascinating. So to cut to the chase, yes, everything changes once you have kids, and there are actual changes to the brain. So I got most of this stuff from Adrienne LaFrance, wrote an article for The Atlantic called "What Happens to a Woman's Brain When She Becomes a Mother?" And she, goes through a bunch of neurology. So basically, pregnancy, she says, tinkers with the very structure of our brains. That gray matter becomes more concentrated. Sounds important, whatever that means.
Sounds important.
That regions that control empathy and anxiety and social interaction light up. Mm-hmm. Like sort of it takes a village thing. I guess we lean into that stuff more. It's funny because I felt that new parenthood was very isolating. But maybe that's it. Maybe like
my anxiety region fired a little too much.
Yeah. Well, so your amygdala, there's more activity in your amygdala, which is a little bit of your lizard brain, your lower level brain activity. It makes you hypersensitive to your baby's needs. And so the amygdala lights up. And then there's also more hormones. And we all know that, right? Like your hormones are racing. And because your amygdala is already more turned up for what it takes in more of the hormones, which creates this sort of positive feedback loop. It can be positive. It can, it keeps us alive, right? It's a biological imperative. It makes us really want to take care of our babies instead of abandoning them on a hillside. It makes us really want to take care of our own babies.
Yes.
There was a study that showed, this is obvious, but they were able to prove it, that a mother's brain activity when she looks at a picture of her smiling baby is like 10x what it is when she looks at a picture of a smiling baby, that we react much more to our own baby. But all this stuff can kind of go too far, right? That there's more activity, there's more amygdala, then it can get imbalanced, and that leads to postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, which are real and terrible, but I think there's a continuum.
Yes.
Right? And your anxiety, I've heard you talk about it, your anxiety sort of turned up after becoming a mom in sort of new ways.
Oh, absolutely. I guess I was anxious beforehand, but I was never diagnosed with postpartum anxiety, but I had ferocious sleep problems. I don't know. Motherhood messed with me in the beginning. And I will say it's gotten so much better. I remember saying to my mom at some point, like, at what point do you stop 24 hours a day worrying about how the baby's going to hurt itself? And my mom, who was kind of joking, was like, oh, that never happens. Like, basically, this is the new sensation of your life, that like your most precious thing walks around outside of your body. And I started bawling and she was like, okay, let me back up. Like, actually, it gets much better, but it has gotten much better. But I would say my general anxiety set point in my entire life ramped up. What did I have to be anxious about before? Like getting to the bar on time to hang with my friends, like getting a script turned in,
Well, like, would you ever make anything of yourself, right? Like, are you going to find the right person? Are you going to be...
I feel like I just had never even considered I went scuba diving once in my entire life, and we were by the Marianas Trench, which is like the deepest part of the ocean. And it's off of Bahamas, and you literally see this edge and like you see the bottom and there's like a little coral and fish, and then there's a line, and beyond that is like this darkness. Like it's a shelf on the ocean floor that goes down like 300 miles or something crazy. I have no idea. I'm sure that's totally wrong, but
100 bajillion miles.
It was I just swam away from it. I was like, I literally can't even look at that thing. It's so mentally upsetting to me, like this trench that drops off. And I felt that my experience of having a baby was that for me, like staring at the Marianas Trench. Like I thought that life was on a scale of 1 to 10. And then I got handed this baby and I was like, oh, the scale is 1 to a billion. You know, it felt so different for me.
There's a lot of uptick too, not just in sort of actual anxiety, but in sort of compulsive behaviors.
Oh, yes, Amy, there is.
In mothers, such as I have to check the baby all the time, hand washing, like the kind of mom, we all were this mom to some extent, like putting the sign on the infant seat, like don't touch the baby, don't be around the baby, all that stuff that we feel hyper vigilant. And we feel like it's only us keeping the kid from falling into the Marianas Trench or whatever you were saying, like only we can do it.
Yes. Or the metaphorical Marianas Trench is like right there. And it's interesting because I've always had some OCD behaviors in my life that were very manageable, but I was always like, oh yeah, I do this weird thing before I go on stage where I have to like tap my foot 4 times, whatever. And they became incredibly problematic after I had my kids, like touching things constantly. And it became, I had to actually see someone and deal with it because it became paralyzing to me. And similarly, I always had sleep problems. And after having kids, I developed a kind of insomnia that was really messing with my life. I don't know. Having kids was hard for me, guys.
And it's all a mix. There's actually, so you have more sleep problems after becoming a mom. Were you more like attentive to the baby's cry than your husband? Of course.
Yes. And I've always had problems with once I'm asleep. Now that I'm getting older, I'm actually finally losing this. But I used to be like, you could put an air horn next to my head at 7 o'clock in the morning and I could fall back asleep. But at night, falling asleep was always a huge problem for me from the time I was a little kid. And it got to the point where I lost my ability to sleep. I wasn't sleeping. I was just getting into bed at night, ragged, tired. But I would be like, if I fall asleep, the baby's going to cry. And I would just, like my ear was open. And one thing I did do for that, which helped, is that there were nights we had a tiny, like 900 square foot house. So there was no other bedroom or anything to go to, but I would trade sides of the bed. So I was the farther away from the nursery with my husband. And I would say, you're listening for the baby tonight. And then I would put earplugs in, and somehow it turned off that part of my brain that was listening for the baby all the time. But I really struggled with all this stuff. It was so tough.
Yeah. I am a light sleeper, and I became like Princess and the Pea light sleeper. This was fascinating. I never knew this until I researched this episode. So we all know that the mother is suspiciously more able to hear the baby crying in the middle of the night than the father, the female parent than the male parent. And there's a reason for that. It's the oxytocin that's in our system. One of the things it's making us do as a biological imperative is hear the hungry baby crying and want to feed it in a way that our husband doesn't, because he can't feed the baby with his breasts. But this study proved that there is more oxytocin in a breastfeeding mother during the night than in a non-breastfeeding mother, than in a formula feeding mother. So that the breastfeeding mother is even more likely to be hypervigilant to the baby crying in the middle of the night, because it's, her breasts that are feeding. Like, your body knows if it's the breast feeding the baby or the person feeding the baby. Does that make sense?
It does. It's fascinating. And it's not surprising, but it is fascinating.
Oh, it messed with me.
Oh, everything messed with me so bad. And I do want to emphasize for people who are listening with a newborn who are in this space, this has gotten solved for me. My anxiety is probably a little bit worse than it was before kids, because I have 3 kids constantly out in the world. But my kids are now 12, 11. Oh, I just had a birthday. 13, 11, and 9 now. I have a teenager now. Wild.
Wow.
But during the day, I don't spend a tremendous amount of time. Like, I could go to the World Series now and sit there and have a hot dog. Like, I actually understand that there is a world that is not like
checking the video monitor, right? You're not watching them do their homework while you're at the World Series.
I had a rough birth, so I had a lot of injuries post-birth. And then I got, what's the horrible gentian violet? It's like the thrush. Oh my God. I really had a hard time.
Gentian violet is what you have to put on your nipples if you have thrush, which is like a breastfeeding infection.
Oh my gosh, it really was bad.
The mother and the baby pass back and forth, as I recall. Yeah, I'm barely remembering it, and I lived it too. The baby has the infection in its mouth, and the mom has it on her breast, and you'll just keep feeding it back and forth unless you put gentian violet, which you can only get at one store, and it costs $36, as I recall. Like it was a thing and a thing.
My sister-in-law has a new baby, and I was just looking at the baby, and it's a girl, as my third was. And I was saying to my husband, why don't I have any memories of having a girl baby? Like, I know I had one. At least a year I had a girl baby.
She's here.
But it's truly like, I was out of my mind. At the time, I had a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I truly don't even remember the days. And I know they weren't joyful days. I've said before, I went back to visit the house recently where I had the babies, thinking I would be like, oh, the house. And I went back and stood in front of that little 900 square foot house where I had 3 kids under 4, 3 kids under 5. And the feeling that washed over me was dread and despair. And it was really interesting to me. Like, I really didn't have a great time having little babies all together. And now that they're older, I'm liking my life a lot more.
It definitely gets easier, and the things that I learned about myself and my, anxiety and my perfectionism, once I dealt with them, it definitely made things easier, but it still changes you. Like, there's still things. My oldest is almost 19 years old, and I'm still a different person than I was before I became a mom.
Absolutely. It changes. I want to put in people's path because I'm talking about like my very difficult experience of having very young babies, that I did not stay in that place, but it absolutely changes you. And we're going to talk about some of those changes when we come back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
Amy, we went to our Facebook group, which is at facebook.com/groups/What Fresh Hellcast. Or you can always just search What Fresh Hell Podcast group in your search bar and it'll take you right there. And Jordan actually put up this thread asking about how it changes you. And we got some really interesting feedback. I was expecting it makes you anxious. I was expecting a lot of things, but there were a couple ones I was like, I would have never thought of that.
Okay.
But let's start with Sina, who says it all. It changes the blood running through your veins, 100% changes your being. She says she loves the idea for a podcast episode. And I think we get it, right? It is an extraordinary change.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're always thinking about these other people, even when they turn into big little people, even when they're around, even when I'm at the experience now where one of my children doesn't live at home anymore, but there's still this an extremely long thread, but there's a thread that connects me to that child, at least in my head. I'm not sure my child feels the same way, but I'm letting the kite out.
I think probably what's interesting is that your child doesn't feel the same way, and that's appropriate.
That's right.
We just lost our family matriarch. My Aunt Eileen passed away and just was at her wake and funeral and talking about all my life. I always heard, Aunt Eileen, she had been pregnant with her 6th child, and then her husband died very unexpectedly in his 40s, died of a heart attack. And I heard that story my whole life. Oh yeah, Aunt Eileen, her husband died when she had these many children. And then I remember in those days of sitting up late nights and thinking about all of a sudden, Aunt Eileen, this happened to her. I've heard this story. Why don't we have a shrine to Aunt Eileen in our yard? How did we just talk about this as this is something else that happened? And I think that being inside the experience of being a mother and that connection to your children and the difficulty of doing it is something that you are always outside, and that is kind of appropriate,
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how becoming a mother sort of changes your perspective about, your aunt or your own mom or your grandmother, right? These things become newly interesting to you. I became very interested in my own grandmother. She raised, single mom, like Aunt Eileen, and had to raise a kid on her own. And in a time when you couldn't really get a very high paying job if you were a woman, right? There was a limit to what you could do. And yeah, that became so much more interesting to me once I could imagine that world instead of moving merrily along as a young person who doesn't understand the amount of maternal investment.
That's right. Isn't it empathy versus sympathy? You're sympathetic to it,
yes.
But then when you're in
You're
it too, you're
empathetic.
empathetic to it. And that's a very different experience. This brings us to Jill, who says, this is a quote from someone else, "With the pitter patter of little feet, 1,000 words you will eat." And I think the idea of I know how to be a parent is very different than actually being a parent, right? It's another thing.
That's so funny. Yeah.
What kind of mom lets their kid blah, blah, blah?
I was in a newborn, parent support group, one of these things that's set up by the hospital. You guys all had your baby the same week and, you should connect and you can come to the hospital. Then you're supposed to sort of continue it on your own. We did at least for a few months. Anyway, there was a mom in my group, parent of first baby, just like me. And she was a pediatrician sitting in this group while all of us had 10-day-old babies with us saying, "Oh my God, I already cannot believe the advice I gave parents." She was just let them cry. Who cared? She was now a completely different pediatrician due to the parenting experience and the change of perspective it had given her.
Yeah. And it's a gift, but it's a tough gift. It's a gift that doesn't come for free,
Yes.
Amy Chrissy says, I am going to steal the title of Amy's book, When Did I Get Like This? I ask myself that question almost daily. Motherhood has changed so much for me. I could have never anticipated the crushing anxiety, the weightiness of each decision, the deep down daily feelings of failing at it all. It's also changed my perspective in a way that would have been impossible without being a mom, as we were just saying. I love this. Before becoming a parent, I gave my own mother such a hard time about so many things. Now I see her in a whole new light and she gets a pass on all of it. Moms are crazy because kids make them that way.
My mom was so like smooth sailing, like never lost her patience, or like I can count on one hand and I remember them because we drove her to her breaking point. But I never gave her a hard time about stuff. But I definitely thought because she made it look easy, that it was therefore easy.
Your mom's a special case. I've met your mom and we've had your mom on the podcast, and she really is made of special stuff.
Yeah, she made the invisible work invisible, and she's always in a good mood, and it's always a good day, and like she's
always in a good mood.
She's gifted that way, and it made for a very happy childhood. But yeah, so for me, it was more like, I gave her a hard time and I shouldn't have. It's more like, wow, I should have given her more credit instead of just being like, as usual, everything's perfect because that's how it always is. It's not like it's hard.
We had Amy's mom and my Aunt Terry on the podcast, and we'll try to link to that episode.
Yeah, we should.
And Amy's mom was like, I don't know. I just loved being a mom and I just enjoyed every minute. And my Aunt Terry, who was standing, my mom passed away a few years ago, so she was standing in for my mom. She yells, your mom had 6 kids. Terry had 5. And she was like, yeah, I mean, I thought about throwing them out the window, but I was like, we only live on the 2nd floor. And that probably would just mean a night in the ER for us. Moms come in from all different angles and
Yes.
they come from all different places. And I do think that it's also a job, like a lot of jobs, where when you stand on the outside, it's like men watching football. You really should have jumped 2 more feet and caught that catch from 50 yards away. It's very easy to sit on your couch and be like, hey, dude, on TV, you stink at this. There were a lot of memes around the Olympics. Like, what the heck is wrong? You can't land a triple sow cow on the balance beam.
Right. Or why don't you walk, Aaron Judge? That kind of thing.
Yeah, come on. I know what I would do sitting here with my beer and pretzels.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that with either our own mothers or just watching other people parent. And I'm amazed that anybody, my husband has been traveling a tremendous amount lately, and I'm doing a lot of stuff on my own. And I have to say, there are days where my kids go with bonkers hair because I can't remember the shower at night and the form and the this. I bow down to any mom who is getting their kid vaguely dressed with a form filled out and a mask and all the different things you need right now. And in the front door of school, you have my enduring respect.
Yeah, you'll get a gold star here every day.
Yeah.
Come here for back pats, as Margaret likes to say.
Back pats. Although I have a tremendously hard time actually saying the phrase back pats.
She would like to say it, right?
I'm always like, pats? I don't know.
Back pats available.
I think that brings us, and I want to read these because I think they're really important to this. Cassie says, being a mother has changed me in ways I could never imagine. From the time my son was about 4 months old to now, he's almost 1.5. I have been on a childhood trauma healing journey. Having my own child brought up flashbacks to moments in my own childhood that triggered memories. I know at the end of this road, I will have grown better, but right now I'm feeling like I've taken the wrong exit. And Heather also says she has new and different anxieties. I have found respect for never say never. I'm seeing flaws in my own childhood very clearly and trying to avoid them. This is an experience that I have seen in a lot of friends of mine, where having children of their own has made them really re-examine some really tough things from their own childhood, things that they thought they had recovered from.
Mm-hmm. Things they either repressed or...
Yep. Friends who had parents who maybe left or were absent from their childhoods, and they've always sort of processed that as like, oh, well, they wanted something else. And then suddenly they have a child of their own, and the reality of what it is like to leave a beloved child, it causes a whole second reckoning with some things that happen in their own childhood, or people who were hurt as children look at their own children and think, what kind of person would hurt a child, and it brings up
even just not abuse. I can think of a family member example, man who was in a car accident when he was 4, and it was, a family story. Had to go to the hospital and lived. It was fine. Injuries were not serious, and then years later has a son. And then when that son is in his 4th year, there's all of a sudden this huge reckoning for that grown up because of this thing that had happened to them when they were that age. And now you have a child of that age. Like that whole year was very impactful for this person all over again. And just this sort of, I think it's this prism you're seeing like, oh, that's me. I was like that when that thing happened, and you're reliving it.
Yeah, it's the circuitry and wires and complications around that go so deep. I want to point people to, we have a Fresh Take with Christine Coe and another Fresh Take with Janice Johnson Diaz, and both of them talk about childhood trauma and revisiting that from a parent's perspective. And they're really, really interesting episodes. And I think it's something that people don't talk a lot about. It's not a topic that I hear often, like, oh, being a mom has really made me this and made me that. But this idea of like being a mom has been a wormhole back to my own childhood in ways that have been really difficult. I think that's something we could talk more about. Tiffany says, it's been interesting to see how motherhood has brought to light some of my flaws or things I need to work on, but also made me learn to love parts of myself that I struggled to before. I am so much less judgmental. Becoming a mom is so humbling. I thought this was a beautiful perspective.
Gosh, I don't really identify, Tiffany, and I wish I did learn to love parts of myself and become less judgmental. It sounds like a thing to move towards.
I feel like I do relate to this, that like, I think that I had this whole reckoning with myself. And I've had this in other aspects of my life, that I have a strong self-identity as like fun and carefree. I think for me, being handed this baby was like, that's the death of the fun person. Now I become the mom person who's not fun. And
right. Or the factotum of the fun having, right? Like you're holding the bag for the fun.
Yeah, I'm holding the bag for the fun. And I have been very happily surprised. And Tiffany made my day by kind of reminding me of this, that some of those skills have really translated well into being a parent, you know, that like I am kind of the person who's like, let's all get dressed in silly outfits for Star Wars Day and march through town, or even much smaller examples that like I have found that my ability to be a kind of bringer of fun in this way, it's very well suited to motherhood. And I have loved, like, I love going to a pumpkin patch. I'm like, this is one of the best days of my year. And I wouldn't be able to do this without the excuse of having my kids with me.
One shouldn't really be in a corn maze without some children with you.
No, one should not just be running around a corn maze as a middle-aged lady. But here I'm completely allowed to be there. And I identify with this to some degree of like, oh, I'm not good at being organized, and I am always the mom who gets the 7th call that's like, remember that form? I am that mom, and sometimes I feel kind of ashamed of that. Like, oh, I'm such a loser. I can't get the forms right. But it's also helped me remember that I also bring a lot of joy to our family by being the person who's like, hey, here's a silly idea. Let's go for it. You know, let's jump in an RV. Let's do these things. And I try to remember to hold both of those things.
I guess for me, this sort of makes me think of like, you know, I'm a very driven person and I was very focused on myself and my career before becoming a parent. And then as soon as the kid was born, I was focused on the kid. And in a way, that's great because it immediately meant like when I was still acting, like, who cares if I didn't get the call back? Who cares if I didn't get the job or the, you know, the Hollywood meeting that didn't lead anywhere? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Because you always had something more important going on at home. And that's been the greatest gift for me as a parent. Like all the stuff that I thought was so important isn't when you have this fullness elsewhere in your life. But I guess it can become problematic when you start to lean too much into the sing out Louise. If I then like put all my pressure into, that's from Gypsy, it's all about it, stage mom. When you start to put too much focus on making your kids achieve the things that you didn't, then that would be problematic. So, you know, watch me on that.
Yeah, but like all things, there's a sweet spot. But I do think that perspective, and I think both of us were striving career-wise in ways that weren't always 100% successful and not exactly the way we wanted. And being able to see the gift of like, oh, this life is like really deep and interesting, this life with kids. I want to come back and talk about more things that surprised me in these comments.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEA Malibu.com.
Hey there, I'm Kendra Adachi, and my show, The Lazy Genius Podcast, helps you be a genius about the things that matter and lazy about the things that don't, and you get to decide what matters. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to give you a new way to see. Episodes of the Lazy Genius Podcast are full of compassionate time management tips and permission slips to do what makes sense for you. New episodes drop every Monday. Follow and listen to the Lazy Genius Podcast on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
And now, you before kids versus you after kids.
From the What Fresh Hell podcast.
You before kids.
Okay, we're meeting at my place at 10:30 p.m. to start getting ready so we can be at the club by midnight.
You after kids.
Book club starts at 8. If I come, I'm wearing my pajamas. You before kids.
This movie is incredible. It's a dark tragedy about a family who starves to death while trying to make their way across the mountains during the Western migration.
You after kids.
Oh no, I can't watch anything where a child is in danger. Or a dog. Is there another episode of the Great British Bake Off that we can watch? You before kids.
I love to drive. There's just something so fun about being on the road with my tunes going, the window down and the wind in my hair.
You after kids.
Okay, well listen to the Frozen soundtrack if you two stop hitting each other. Oh no, don't throw up. Oh God, you threw up. You before kids.
It's the weekend. I just need to sleep. I need to get some brunch and I need to totally reset.
You after kids.
It's the weekend. Set your alarm for 5:30 a.m. so that we are not late for soccer. And every second that we are not at a kids' sporting event this weekend, we need to be doing laundry and matching up socks.
This has been You Before Kids versus You After Kids.
From the What Fresh Hell podcast. So a couple more surprising things from our Facebook group about this. Jill says, I'm so much more go with the flow to survive the family chaos. Jill, who are you?
What?
We don't understand your ways.
Like, was that a light switch, Jill? We need to have Jill on the show. Like, really? Like, all at once?
We need to have Jill as a special guest because who is this person? Like, I became whatever the opposite of go with the flow is. That became me. I became the, oh my gosh, everyone's going to die all the time. And I have to touch things to make that stop happening.
I mean, I'm trying to move towards that. There's an anxiety sort of approach that when you're anxious, there's something you can tell yourself, like the self-talk. And one of the things you can tell yourself is, can you think of a time when you worried like this before about something that turned out to be okay? And of course, like the list is, infinity long. Yes, I've worried every day about things that didn't actually.
Yeah, that's a lesson I will never learn. My husband is always saying to me, wow, you really like to think about everything that could possibly go wrong. And it's like, yes, I do. I like to imagine all the scenarios.
That's almost reassuring for you, I think, right? It's like if I've thought of everything that could go wrong, as long as my list is complete, then...
Yes, then maybe it won't happen.
And of course, that's not accurate, but I understand it. I identify.
But I do think that's gotten tremendously worse since I had kids. I mean, we drive in a car and every time there's a bend in the road, I'm like, what if there's someone on a bike right past that bend? I mean, it's the constant vigilance. It's exhausting is the word.
It's funny. I think I tend to like bring it down to bite size. Like I worry about like these forms are all due by October 1st and it's, September 28th. I worry about that. I don't worry about like, what if my kid gets in trouble at summer camp, something bigger.
I do think for me, I was just thinking about this. That for me, I feel like my mom identity, I just had a big milestone birthday and people were talking about, the me that they'd known. And there was a thematic thing about people coming to my incredibly messy dorm room apartment that like people would be like sleeping and there would be like dirty dishes under the bed. Like 3 different people mentioned it. And I do think that I do not do that anymore. I do not leave. I mean, my husband would say I leave cups around, but the idea of being a mom with dirty dishes in her house seems to me unacceptable in a way that being a person with dirty dishes under her bed did not bother me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I can't identify with the like more go with the flow. I'm like, I must pretend to be a normal person now that I'm a mom.
But it is at least a change about you that was for the better. And I think that's good.
That was probably for the better.
It's nice to hear that there are some things that change.
There are upsides.
Like when I was pregnant, my eyesight improved. My eyeglass prescription improved while I was pregnant. Isn't that bonkers? I mean, I thought it was bonkers. The eye doctor was like, oh, no, yeah. Like pregnant women, it changes your eye prescription. Not always for the better, but sometimes. Like I'll take one win. that I don't need glasses all of a sudden.
I'll take the win. Take the W.
I do now, but for a while, I got a couple good years out of it.
Cassie also says she's become more laid-back patient and now embrace the mess. She's going to be our co-guest on this episode. Sticky counters or crumbs on the floor. I guess I can see where if you were like, everything has to be spotless and clean all the time, that you would have to let that go with little kids.
Right. Or only ever clean.
I went the exact opposite, where I was like, I actually can't have my kids like eating moldy pancakes out from under my bed, so I guess I have to clean up. Katie says, and this is, we were just touching on it kind of before the break, sometimes I feel like I've lost commitment to things I used to value because I don't have the energy. I'm going to offer Katie a big fat, it gets better. I have a very rich life outside of having kids now, but for 4 or 5 years, I did nothing but like kids, breastfeeding, diapers, chicken nuggets, sleep as much as I possibly could. And I definitely remember feeling like, oh, it's over. Like it's lost all the things I wanted to be and do. And now my life is like 80% work and thinking about my own things and 20% dealing with my children. Maybe not quite that severe, but I mean, this gets so much better. And I remember feeling this way and then being like, oh no, that was just this is seasonal to me.
Yeah, no, you're right. It shrinks down, it comes into close up, and then you can kind of zoom back out. And of course, it might be different things like the volunteer activities that I'm involved in now, or things I didn't really know about or have on my radar screen before becoming a parent. It'll help you find new things that are important to you. But you're right, you naturally find sort of new uses of your talent and time when you have those things available to you again.
Yeah, look for them, lean into them when you start coming out and when you start, shrinking back the childcare. But I do think that this is something that comes back. And I wish I'd known that a little bit more when I was like, I guess my life now is only diapers. It's not.
Yeah.
April says, I like this one. I became so much more confident and bold. I was super shy, but realized that I made a human, so no reason to let anything hold me back. I've spent most of my motherhood fixing myself and removing barriers.
This is interesting that both says that she's more confident and bold after becoming a mother and that she has spent a lot of time fixing herself after becoming a mother. Those sound contradictory to me, but maybe not.
But maybe what she was fixing was this thing of like, not taking room.
Okay, yeah, it's literally that.
I love this. And I feel like this is something that I think naturally happens to a lot of women as they get older. You will hear people say, no blanks left to give as you get older and older. And I think that, yes, being a mom is part of it. Like, I can really do amazing things. You've done amazing things by creating a human or bringing up a human. And I like to see that April is finding her confidence in that. It's cool to me.
That's interesting because honestly, I think that becoming a mother made me more reticent because of that, like feeling you get in a mixed group, particularly like men and women, that sort of cocktail party thing when they ask what you do and you say, well, I'm raising my kids. And they just...
And everyone's like, sad trombone for you.
And you get the, 15% of their shoulder already because they're on to something next. Or they just assume. I mean, I've had people make assumptions about me. Like groups of people being like, well, no, she doesn't have time to do any of that. She has 3 kids. I'm like, well, actually, I have this. I have a podcast, whatever. People make assumptions about you that you don't have that much going on. They hear mom and they stop listening. And it makes me mad, but it does sort of affect my self-confidence, I think, still.
I think a lot of this stuff is starting points and ending points. And I think that's right. I mean, my mom always says that. My mom was in her 30s working in a very high up position in Washington, D.C. in the government. And then had 3 kids and she was like, I disappeared. I think she never really felt that same level of importance. And this was in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And so I think it's interesting. But I think we should all take a lesson from April and try to find that thing of like, hey, you've done a miraculous thing, whether you had your baby, adopted your baby, like you have taken care of a human being. It's really hard, and let it give you that confidence. And the people who turn away from you at cocktail parties, too bad, so sad for them. They're missing out.
Yeah, they are.
We cannot leave any talk about how we've changed. We've talked about it already for ourselves. But yes, many people said anxiety was big for them. Erica says, can't forget anxiety and insomnia. Jess says, so much anxiety. Steffi says, I had no idea it would be this bad. And Andy says, it's so hard, so much anxiety and stress about being a good mom without losing your mind. And
that's it, though. That's what Melanie just said. She says there's so much anxiety about how to be a good mom without losing your mind. It's like you're putting in like 3 steps. Like you're feeling the anxiety about feeling the anxiety. And that gets in the way. Like, why am I like this? Okay, well, stop worrying about that and start being less anxious instead of feeling bad that you feel anxious.
Agree. And I also think it goes towards your frequently made point that the pain is in the gap.
Yeah.
That the pain, I was very ambivalent about becoming a mom, honestly. I saw two paths stretched out before me, one where I did not have kids and one where I did have kids. And I thought they both looked pretty good. And I felt a little bit pulled towards the motherhood track because I kind of felt like, well, that's kind of the full human experience track. And I guess I have to go down that track. But I was not somebody who was like, kids are going to be the be all and end all of my life. I did not identify as a mother strongly before having kids. And I think for me, that initial burst of misery when becoming a parent, part of the thing that made it super difficult was feeling like I was an alien human being who was missing out on the, like, my baby slid down the rainbow straight from Jesus's arms. And I was supposed to be like, you know, frolicking all day with like my muslin gown and my angelic smile. And I felt like a freak, you know, I felt like, oh my gosh, maybe this wasn't the right thing for me to do, because I don't feel that way. I feel anxious and miserable and really bummed out. And I think that what I have to offer younger moms who are in that space now is, for me, it got so much better. I was not a person for babies. I still am not a person who sees a baby and like, oh, let me get my hands on that baby. I think they're cute and all, but I love hanging out with my grown-ish kids right now, but I did not love being surrounded by little people with very high needs. And my anxiety was awful, and it's gotten a lot better.
I am totally the opposite. No surprise. That right? That I, because we're the opposite always, that I like wanted to be a mom like ever since, non-negotiable, you know, babysitting since second grade. Like I was ready for this. And I was, and it wasn't the like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to parent this baby thing I found hard, but I still found things hard, right? I brought into it all the love and expectation, and I knew what I was getting into, and it was exactly what I thought I was getting into, only of course harder. And I still had anxiety about it, even though I had no ambivalence about it at all. So I think it happens no matter what.
Yeah. And anxiety, I mean, I saw somebody write a long time ago, it's a piece of your heart walking around outside your body now. And like, that will always be an anxiety producing experience, because what we like is control, and we have a lot of control over ourselves, and we have a lot less control over a being that is outside of ourselves. And so anxiety is a very, very natural part of that, but I think it's worth trying to fix when you can, and trying to quantify it and trying to make it better, and knowing that, like, for me at least, it got a lot better. I would say I used to spend 90% of my time worrying about something bad happening to my kids. And now I think I probably spend 10% of my time worrying about that. And it's still, I'd love to get to 1%, which is where my husband seems to live. But I would like to get it lower, but it has gotten significantly better.
You know, if this conversation was useful for you, you should definitely check out Toddler Purgatory. Their latest episode is called All the Feels, and they're talking about mom guilt and rage and shame, less the postpartum anxiety stuff we've been talking about today, but just the sort of the things that you feel and then you feel bad about feeling them. And they talk about some really good sort of approaches for sort of moving past it, for sort of acknowledging it, sitting with it, and moving on. And so go check that out for sure.
Find that wherever you listen to podcasts, Toddler Purgatory, and then do us a favor. A rating or a review for our show, What Fresh Hell, or Toddler Purgatory always helps people find the shows. And so if you would take a little time out of your day and give us a rating or review in your podcast app, that would be wonderful for us.
Tap, swipe, star it, wherever you're listening right now.
Tap, swipe, star, yes, inside that app. And
yeah.
We thank you. This was such a good conversation, and we thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
So long.